The blue light of Earth shone through the window of Captain Alan Beck's office aboard the defense station. He stared at the screen showing unusual energy readings from the edge of the solar system. The year was 2157, and humans had spread across their home system, with thriving colonies on Mars and outposts as far as the moons of Neptune. "Sir, the sensors are picking up something big," said Lieutenant Samantha Perry, entering the room with a tablet in hand. "It's like nothing we've seen before." Alan nodded, his weathered face serious as he studied the data. "Whatever it is, it's not one of ours." Within hours, the mysterious object revealed itself. A sleek vessel, 3 times the size of Earth's largest ship, slowed as it approached Neptune's orbit. Its surface gleamed with an odd metal that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "They're hailing us," Samantha said, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. The screen flickered to life. A tall, blue-skinned being with 4 eyes stared back at them. Behind him stood others of his kind, all wearing ornate uniforms that sparkled with tiny lights. "I am Lord Sirian of the Galactic Empire," the alien said in perfect English. "Your world has been noticed by our scouts and deemed worthy of integration." Alan stepped forward. "I'm Captain Alan Beck of the Earth Defense Force. We welcome peaceful contact with other civilizations." Lord Sirian's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones scanned something off-screen. "Peaceful? Yes, all species say this. Your integration will be peaceful if you choose to accept our rule without resistance." Samantha joined Alan at the screen. "Perhaps we could discuss terms of mutual cooperation instead. Earth would be happy to establish diplomacy is for equals." Xurian cut her off. "Your species has barely left its cradle. We have ruled the stars for 10,000 years." Over the next few hours, Samantha led a hastily assembled first contact team in discussions with the Imperial representatives. The aliens spoke with growing contempt as they learned more about Earth's visible space technology. "Your propulsion systems are primitive," one Imperial scientist remarked. "And your weapons? Energy-based, but so inefficient, like watching children play with sticks." Samantha kept her composure. "We're still developing our technologies. With your help, perhaps." "Yes, you will develop," Xurian said. "Under our guidance, the Empire uplifts all species to serve greater purposes." "Serve?" Alan asked sharply. Xurian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Of course. Labor, resources, military service when needed. All species contribute to the Empire according to their abilities. Humans appear physically weak but show some intelligence. You will likely serve in mining operations or perhaps simple manufacturing." The room fell silent. Alan's hands clenched into fists below the edge of the table. "We need time to discuss this with our leaders," Samantha said carefully. Xurian stood, towering over the humans. "You have 1 galactic cycle, 30 of your Earth days, to prepare for integration. When we return, we expect your surrender. The alternative is conquest, which would be unfortunate. Your cities are quite fragile." After the Imperial ship departed, Earth's leaders gathered in an emergency session. Screens from around the world and across the colony showed grim faces. "They see us as insects," Alan reported, replaying parts of the meeting. "Their ships, their weapons, everything we could see suggests they're far beyond our public technology level." "Public technology," repeated Admiral Frank Nelson, his voice echoing in the chamber. His eyes met Alan's. "It's time, then." Samantha looked between them. "Time for what?" The Admiral pressed his palm to a scanner. A hidden door slid open in the wall of the meeting room. "Follow me, Miss Perry. Captain Beck, you too." They walked down a long corridor that shouldn't have existed in the building's blueprints. "For over 60 years, Admiral Nelson said as they walked, Earth has kept its biggest secret. When the Imperials return, expecting to find sheep ready for slaughter." He stopped at another door, this one massive and made of thick metal. It opened slowly, revealing a darkened space beyond. Lights activated in sequence, illuminating an enormous underground hangar. Samantha gasped. Row after row of advanced ships stretched before them, unlike anything publicly known to exist. "They'll find wolves instead," the Admiral finished, as the lights revealed Earth's hidden fleet. Samantha Perry stared in awe at the massive ships lined up in the underground hangar. She had worked in space diplomacy for 8 years, but never knew these vessels existed. "How is this possible?" she asked Admiral Nelson, her voice barely above a whisper. The Admiral led her and Captain Beck deeper into the facility. It began in 2089. Astronaut Diane Morris was exploring the outer reaches of the Kuiper Belt when she found something that wasn't supposed to be there. He stopped at a glass case. Inside sat what looked like a piece of twisted metal with strange symbols etched into its surface. "A crashed alien ship," Alan said, recognizing the artifact from classified briefings. "Yes," the Admiral nodded. "Not from this empire, but from somewhere else." The ship was small, badly damaged, and its pilot dead for what our scientists guessed was at least a century. But the technology inside, he shook his head in wonder. It changed everything. They entered a large room where engineers worked on what looked like an engine core. It glowed with a soft blue light and made no sound. "For almost 70 years, we've been reverse engineering what we found," Admiral Nelson continued. "The world's governments agreed to keep it secret. We didn't know who else was out there, but we knew we weren't ready to meet them as we were. All this time," Samantha said, "while we were sending conventional rockets to Mars." "It was a cover," Alan finished, "a way to hide our real progress." They boarded a small transport ship. The inside looked normal, but when it moved, Samantha felt nothing. No acceleration, no vibration. "We're going to Mars," the Admiral said. "You need to see the full extent of our preparations." The journey took only minutes, not the days or weeks it normally would. When they disembarked, they were in another massive underground facility. "This is Fleet Base Alpha," said a woman who greeted them. "I'm Chief Engineer Lisa Grant." Lisa led them to an observation deck. Below them stretched an enormous construction bay. Workers moved around ships that dwarfed anything Earth officially possessed. Some vessels were sleek and fast-looking, while others were heavily armored. "We have similar bases on Jupiter's moons and throughout the asteroid belt," Lisa explained. "Together, they house over 500 combat-ready ships and twice as many support vessels." "The asteroid mining operations," Samantha began. "Real, but also cover for building these," Lisa nodded. "The resources went into the fleet instead of back to Earth." In a command center, they met Kevin Howard, head of weapons development. He showed them simulations of the fleet's capabilities. "Our ships use gravity manipulation for propulsion and defense," Kevin explained. "We can move faster and turn harder than should be physically possible. Our weapons disrupt matter at the quantum level." "But will it be enough against the Empire?" Alan asked. The group fell silent. Finally, Admiral Nelson spoke. "We don't know. That's why we need information. The Imperials think they're dealing with a primitive world. Let's keep them thinking that while we gather intelligence." A woman in a military uniform joined them, introducing herself as Major Heather Barnes. "We have a plan. We'll meet them beyond Neptune, not here near Earth. If they break through, we have secondary and tertiary defense lines prepared." Samantha studied the tactical displays showing Earth's forces spread throughout the solar system. "How did you keep all this hidden?" "The resources, the people. Over 3 million people know about the program," the Admiral said, "all sworn to secrecy. The greatest shared secret in human history. As for resources, we didn't take them from Earth. We harvested them from the outer system, where nobody was looking." Major Barnes brought up images of the Imperial ship. "Based on what we observed, they're advanced, but not unbeatable. Their technology seems to focus on brute force rather than efficiency." Kevin nodded. "Their ships are bigger than necessary. Power usage is wasteful. They've relied on overwhelming force for so long they've stopped innovating." Admiral Nelson turned to Samantha. Miss Perry, we want you to lead a diplomatic team when they return. Keep them talking while we position our fleet. You want me to stall them? Samantha said. Yes. Can you do that? Samantha thought of the Empire's dismissive attitude, their plans to use humans as little more than slaves. She straightened her shoulders. Yes, I can do that. Good, Admiral Nelson said, because in 28 days, the Galactic Empire is going to get the surprise of its 10,000-year history. Lord Sirian stood before a massive holographic display on the Imperial command vessel. Stars and planets floated in the air around him, with Earth highlighted in red. 4 other high-ranking Imperials watched as he gave his report. The humans have basic space travel capabilities, Sirian said. They've colonized their neighboring planet and established small outposts throughout their system. Their weapons are primitive energy-based designs. Grand Admiral Valker, the highest-ranking military official present, studied the display with 6 eyes, the mark of pure Imperial bloodlines. Resources, he asked. Abundant, Sirian replied. Water, minerals, and a wide variety of biological compounds. The planet's diversity will be useful to our bioresearch division. And resistance potential. Valker's voice was deep and smooth, but cold. Sirian projected images of Earth's visible space fleet, the public ships the humans allowed the rest of the universe to see. Minimal. Their largest vessels are under 200 meters in length. Thin armor, basic weapon systems. They'll fall quickly. Near the back of the room, Dr. Ella Wright kept her eyes down. She looked like any other Imperial assistant with her blue-painted skin and uniform, but she was human. A deep-cover agent sent months ago to infiltrate the Empire. Her genetic modifications and surgically altered features had allowed her to pass as a low-ranking Imperial from one of their colony worlds. What about their psychological profile? Asked Science Minister Crix. Will they integrate easily? Sirian brought up images of humans going about their daily lives. They showed typical behaviors of pre-galactic species, territorial, but also curious. Some will resist, others will accept our rule. Standard patterns. Ella carefully took notes on her datapad, making sure to record everything for transmission back to Earth. The Empire had no idea what they were really walking into. You mentioned they have colonies, Valker said. How many can fight? Mars has a population of roughly 8 million, Sirian answered. Their other outposts total less than 1 million. Most are scientific or mining operations. What he didn't know, Ella thought, was that those mining operations were actually military bases and shipyards. After the meeting, Ella slipped away to her quarters. The small room was barely large enough for a bed and desk, befitting her supposed low rank. She carefully removed a hidden panel in the wall and took out a communication device disguised as an Imperial medical tool. She had less than 5 minutes before the ship's security scan would detect any unauthorized transmissions. Working quickly, she composed her message with everything she had learned and sent it through a quantum channel that Earth scientists had developed specifically for this mission. 3 decks above, Sirian met with Commander Zex, who led the Empire's 8th Battle Group. We'll approach with standard formation, Zex said, showing a tactical display. 5 heavy destroyers in front, supported by 20 cruisers. The rest of the fleet will remain in reserve unless needed. It won't be needed, Sirian said confidently. This isn't the first primitive world we've added to the Empire. How many other species have you conquered? Ella asked a junior officer later that day in the dining hall, keeping her tone casual. 17 major species serve the Empire now, the officer replied proudly. Most saw a reason and surrendered. A few fought. None won. What happened to those who fought? Ella asked. The officer's expression darkened. They serve in the deep mines or on agricultural worlds. The Empire rewards cooperation and punishes defiance. That night, Ella risked one more transmission to Earth with this new information. As she finished, an alarm blared. She had taken too long. Security would be coming. Quickly, she destroyed her transmitter and swallowed a small pill that would temporarily alter her vital signs to match Imperial norms more closely. She had just laid down on her bed when the door slid open. "Random security scan," the guard announced, scanning the room with a handheld device. Ella forced herself to appear calm. Of course. The scanner paused over the wall where her transmitter had been hidden. A small fragment remained, too tiny to see but enough for the scanner to detect. "Interesting," the guard said, moving closer to the wall. Ella knew her cover was about to be blown, but she had accomplished her mission. Earth now knew the Empire's battle plans, their tactics, and their weaknesses. Whether she escaped or not, humanity would be ready. The guard turned to her, eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You're coming with me." Admiral Frank Nelson stood in the command center of Earth's largest hidden base inside Callisto, one of Jupiter's moons. Around him, officers moved with purpose, preparing for the coming battle. Screens showed hundreds of ships emerging from hidden docks throughout the solar system. "Status report," Nelson ordered. Major Heather Barnes stepped forward. "All fleet commanders report ready, sir. The stealth ships under Captain Pete Douglas have moved into position beyond Neptune. Lieutenant Carol Martinez has her drone operators standing by. We're ready." Nelson nodded. "And the intelligence from Dr. Wright?" Her last transmission included the Empire's battle plans. Barnes replied. "They're coming with 25 capital ships in the first wave. They have no idea what they're walking into." The door slid open, and two scientists entered. Jack Collins was tall and thin with glasses that seemed too large for his face. Maria Sanchez was shorter, with her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. "The shield modifications are complete, Admiral," Maria said. "Based on Dr. Wright's data about their weapons, we've adjusted our defensive systems. Our shields should hold against their initial attack." Jack pushed his glasses up. "We've also finished the final calibrations on the quantum disruptors. They'll need to get close, but when they do," he smiled, "their shields won't know what hit them." "Good work," Nelson said. "What's the status of our allies from the asteroid belt?" Barnes brought up a new display. "The mining colony ships are on their way. They're heavily armored and carry the heavy cannons. They'll arrive at the rendezvous point in 6 hours. On the main screen, a message flashed. Nelson opened it immediately. It contained only 4 words: "Spy compromised. Empire coming." Everyone in the room fell silent. "How soon?" Nelson asked. Barnes checked the deep space sensors. Energy signatures detected near Pluto. "They're moving faster than expected. Arrival in 12 hours. "That's sooner than we planned," Nelson said. "Send word to all ships. Battle stations. Pete's stealth squadron needs to be in position before they arrive." Across the solar system, humanity's hidden fleet moved into formation. Unlike the Empire's vessels, Earth's ships were not uniform in design. Some were small and sleek, designed for speed and stealth. Others were bulky with heavy armor, built to take damage and keep fighting. Each was a blend of reverse-engineered alien technology and human innovation. On the stealth ship Shadow, Captain Pete Douglas briefed his crew. "Our job is simple. We hit them from behind while they're focused on the decoy fleet. Quick strikes, then retreat. Don't stay in one place too long." His second-in-command looked nervous. "Sir, we've never fought aliens before." Pete gave her a reassuring smile. "Neither have they fought humans. That's our advantage." In another part of the solar system, Lieutenant Carol Martinez sat in a darkened room surrounded by screens. 50 operators worked at stations around her, each controlling dozens of combat drones. "These drones are our first line of defense," she told her team. "The Empire won't expect automated weapons with our level of AI. Use that surprise to your advantage." On Earth, Samantha Perry stood before the world's leaders. "The Empire believes they're coming to accept our surrender. Instead, they'll be meeting our fleet. If I can open a channel to them when the fighting starts, I'll try one more time for diplomacy." An older woman in the council shook her head. "After what they did to Dr. Wright, Do you really think they'll listen? Probably not, Samantha admitted. But we should try. We don't want to become like them. Back at the Callisto base, Admiral Nelson made a final inspection of his flagship, the Defiant. It was the largest vessel humans had ever built, nearly a kilometer long with weapons that could tear apart a small moon. As he stood on the bridge, looking at the crew preparing for battle, he felt a mix of pride and concern. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, but theory and practice were different things. Admiral, his communications officer called. All ships report ready. The Empire's fleet has passed Pluto's orbit. They'll be at Neptune in 10 hours. Nelson took his command chair, set course for Neptune. It's time to show the Empire that humans are not to be underestimated. The Imperial fleet moved with confidence through the outer edges of Earth's solar system. 25 massive warships, each bristling with weapons, formed a wedge formation as they approached Neptune. Smaller scout ships darted ahead, scanning for any sign of resistance. On the command deck of the lead ship, Commander Zex watched the tactical display with satisfaction. No sign of organized defense. Lord Syrian, just as you predicted. Lord Syrian nodded. Their primitive sensors have likely not even detected our approach yet. But he was wrong. Behind Neptune's blue curve, Commander Greg Foster's small fleet of 10 ships waited. These vessels were older models, deliberately chosen to match what the Empire expected to see from Earth. All ships in position, Greg's second-in-command reported. The Empire's scouts will detect us in 3 minutes. Greg took a deep breath. Remember, we need to look like we're giving everything we've got. Make it convincing. When the Imperial scouts spotted the human ships, they immediately reported back. Commander Zex laughed. Is this the best they can offer? 10 small vessels. The Imperial fleet adjusted course slightly, moving to engage what they believed was Earth's main defensive force. Greg's ships emerged from Neptune's shadow, weapons firing. The energy beams struck the lead Imperial ship, creating bright flashes against its shields but doing no real damage. Return fire, Zex ordered casually. Show them what real weapons can do. The Imperial ships fired. 2 of Greg's vessels exploded immediately. 3 more took heavy damage. It looked like a slaughter. But this was exactly as planned. On the communications ship Interceptor, hidden in Neptune's rings, Ben Parker listened to all Imperial communications. They're completely focused on Foster's fleet, he reported to Admiral Nelson. They're using standard encryption. I'm breaking through now. As Ben worked, he began to understand the Imperial tactical system. Sir, their ships communicate on 3 main channels. Fleet commands, targeting data, and shield coordination all use different frequencies. Admiral Nelson's voice came through his headset. Can you disrupt them? Yes, sir. Their systems are actually less advanced than we expected. They rely on overwhelming power, not efficiency. Hiding in the darkness of space, Captain Olivia Scott watched her tactical display. Her ship, the Raptor, carried Earth's newest weapon, a device that could disrupt the quantum field that powered Imperial shields. 5 minutes until we're in range, her weapons officer said. Olivia nodded. All ships hold position. Wait for Admiral Nelson's signal. Aboard the Defiant, Admiral Nelson watched as Greg's remaining ships fought valiantly against the Imperial fleet. 3 of Greg's vessels still functioned, drawing the Empire deeper into the trap. Now, Nelson ordered. Across the Neptune system, space seemed to ripple. Ships appeared where none had been visible before. Hundreds of them. Earth's main fleet had arrived, dropping their stealth fields simultaneously. On the Imperial command ship, alarms blared. New contacts. A sensor officer shouted. Hundreds of vessels surrounding us. Commander Zex stared in disbelief. Impossible. Where did they come from? Before he could issue new orders, the human fleet opened fire. Unlike the earlier attacks, these weapons struck with devastating force. 3 Imperial ships lost shields instantly. Shields failing, an Imperial officer reported. They're using some kind of energy we've never seen before. Captain Olivia Scott's voice came over the Imperial communication channels. Attention, Imperial Fleet. Your shields are vulnerable to our quantum disruptors. Surrender now or face destruction. Lord Syrian grabbed the communication console. This is a trick. Humans don't have this technology. As if in answer, another Imperial ship exploded, its reactor core breached by the human weapons. How is this possible? Commander Zex demanded. On the Defiant, Admiral Nelson watched the battle unfold. Order Captain Scott to target their flagship's propulsion systems. I want it disabled, not destroyed. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, surrounding the Imperial ships. The Empire's formation, designed to attack a weaker enemy head-on, now worked against them as they found themselves under fire from all directions. Their tactics are primitive, an Imperial officer insisted. They can't possibly. His words were cut short as his console exploded. The flagship shuddered as multiple hits landed across its hull. Retreat, Commander Zex ordered. All ships, emergency jump to Rally Point Alpha. But the Imperial fleet was in disarray. 8 ships had already been destroyed or disabled. The rest struggled to break free from the human attack. Back on Earth, the world's leaders watched the battle through real-time feeds. One turned to Samantha Perry. It seems your diplomatic skills won't be needed after all. Samantha shook her head. This is just the beginning. The Empire won't take this defeat lightly. In space, the remaining Imperial ships finally managed to regroup and retreat, jumping away to safety. Admiral Nelson sent a message to all human ships. First engagement complete. The Empire has retreated. Prepare for their return. Next time, they won't underestimate us. 3 days after the battle at Neptune, Earth's fleet regrouped near Saturn. The giant ringed planet provided both cover and strategic advantage. Admiral Nelson stood on the bridge of the Defiant, studying reports from scout ships. The Empire is gathering a much larger force, he told his officers. Our victory shocked them, but now they're angry. Major Heather Barnes nodded. According to our deep space sensors, they've called in their elite battle group, at least 60 capital ships, led by Grand Admiral Valker himself. So the big boss is coming, Admiral Nelson said. Good. Maybe he'll be open to talks once he sees what we can do. The human fleet spread throughout Saturn's rings, using the ice and dust particles for cover. The chunks of rock and ice would also interfere with Imperial targeting systems. On the engineering deck of the Defiant, Kevin Howard worked frantically to improve their defenses. The quantum disruptors worked better than expected, he told his team, but the Empire will adapt. We need something new. A young engineer looked up from her workstation. What about the ring drones? Are they ready? Kevin smiled. Just finished the last one. 5,000 autonomous battle drones, all hidden within Saturn's rings. When activated, they'll swarm any Imperial ship that comes close. In orbit around Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Captain Pete Douglas prepared his stealth ships for another mission. We'll need to get close to their flagship, he told his pilots. Our job is to identify key targets for the main fleet. One of the pilots looked nervous. Sir, the reports say their new ships have enhanced sensors. Our stealth tech might not work as well. Then we'll have to be extra careful, Pete replied. We don't need to be invisible, just hard to spot. The warning came sooner than expected. All communication systems lit up with urgent messages from the outer sensor network. They're here, Major Barnes announced on the command deck. 67 capital ships and over 200 support vessels. They've bypassed Neptune completely and are heading straight for Saturn. Admiral Nelson frowned. They're moving faster than we anticipated. All ships, battle stations. The Imperial Armada was an impressive sight as it approached Saturn. At its center was the Dominion, Grand Admiral Valker's personal flagship. Nearly 3 kilometers long, it dwarfed even the largest human vessels. On its bridge, Valker stood with his 6 eyes fixed on the tactical display. "These humans have technology they should not possess," he said coldly. "Someone has violated Imperial law and shared advanced systems with them." Lord Syrian stood nearby, his posture stiff. His failure at Neptune had cost him standing. "Perhaps they developed it independently," he suggested. "Impossible," Valkyr snapped. "No species goes from primitive rockets to quantum technology in less than a century." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the Planet Killer. Target their moon base on Titan." The Planet Killer was the Empire's most feared weapon. It could crack a small moon in half or render a planet's surface uninhabitable. As the Imperial fleet neared Saturn, they deployed in a sphere formation, ready to attack from all angles. "They've learned from last time," Admiral Nelson observed. "They're not using the same approach." Major Barnes looked worried. "Sir, energy readings from their flagship. They're charging something big." A communication came through on all channels. Grand Admiral Valkyr's face appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. "Attention human forces. Your resistance is noted but futile. Surrender now, or we will destroy your base on Titan along with everyone on it. You have 5 minutes to comply." Admiral Nelson opened a return channel. "This is Admiral Frank Nelson of Earth. We will not surrender. Any attack on Titan will be considered an act of war against all humanity." Valkyr's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. "War was declared the moment you destroyed Imperial ships. Prepare to witness the consequences." The Empire's flagship turned toward Titan, its forward section opening to reveal a massive energy weapon. Kevin Howard's voice came urgently over the communication system. "Admiral, we've detected the weapon's energy signature. It's a planetary disruption device. If it hits Titan, the moon will break apart." Admiral Nelson made his decision instantly. "Activate the ring drones. All ships, engage the enemy. Priority target is their flagship before it can fire." Across Saturn's rings, thousands of small drones suddenly activated, their engines glowing blue as they shot toward the Imperial fleet. The battle for Saturn had begun, and this time, the Empire was not holding back. The space around Saturn erupted into chaos as thousands of small drones shot out from the planet's rings. Each one was barely larger than a car, but packed with powerful weapons. The Imperial fleet, not expecting this tactic, was slow to respond. "What are those?" Grand Admiral Valkyr demanded as the small objects appeared on his sensors. "Some kind of automated weapon," his tactical officer replied, voice rising with concern. "They're everywhere." The drones swarmed around Imperial ships like angry bees, firing precision shots at weapons arrays and engine ports. Larger Imperial vessels swatted them away. But for each drone destroyed, 10 more took its place. Meanwhile, Earth's main fleet emerged from hiding positions throughout Saturn's system. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, targeting the Empire's support vessels first. On the Defiant, Admiral Nelson watched the battle unfold. Status of the Imperial flagship. "Still charging their Planet Killer," Major Barnes reported. Estimated time to firing: 2 minutes. Nelson made a quick decision. "We need to stop that weapon. Patch me through to Captain Scott." On the quantum disruptor ship Raptor, Captain Olivia Scott received new orders. "We need to get closer to use the disruptors effectively," she told her crew. Full speed toward the Imperial flagship. The Raptor and its escort ships broke formation, accelerating toward the massive Imperial vessel. Enemy fire intensified as they approached. "Shields at 60%. The Raptor's defensive officer called out as the ship shook from a direct hit. "Keep going," Olivia ordered. "We need to get within range." Across the battlefield, Captain Pete Douglas's stealth ships moved silently between the fighting. Their mission was to identify and target the Empire's command ships. Using the chaos as cover, they approached Valkyr's flagship from below. "Look at the size of that thing," Pete whispered as they flew under the massive vessel. His scanners detected a weak point where energy was gathering. That must be where the Planet Killer connects to their main power grid. He transmitted the coordinates to Admiral Nelson. Sir, we found a vulnerability. Sending data now. On the Defiant, Nelson studied the new information. Good work. Captain Scott, adjust your target to these coordinates. The Raptor changed course slightly, aiming for the weak point. They were now close enough to deploy their weapon. Quantum disruptors at full power, Olivia's weapons officer reported. Fire. The disruptors hit the Imperial flagship precisely where Pete had indicated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, secondary explosions rippled along the vessel's hull. On the Imperial bridge, systems failed as power fluctuated. Planet killer charging sequence disrupted. An officer reported frantically. We can't fire. Valkyr's 6 eyes narrowed in rage. Redirect all power. We will not be stopped by these primitives. But the Empire had a bigger problem. The quantum disruption had caused a chain reaction in their power systems. Warning lights flashed across their control panels. Power core unstable. The Imperial engineer warned. We need to shut down the main reactor or... He never finished his sentence. A massive explosion tore through the lower decks of the flagship, crippling its engines and weapon systems. Admiral Nelson saw his chance. All ships concentrate fire on their command vessels. Without coordination, their fleet will fall apart. The human ships pressed their advantage, targeting the damaged Imperial flagship and its escorts. The ring drones continued their attack on the rest of the fleet, causing confusion and preventing the Empire from forming an organized defense. Grand Admiral Valkyr gripped his command chair as his ship shuddered under continuous fire. Retreat, he ordered. All ships fall back to defensive position beta. The Imperial fleet began to withdraw, but not quickly enough. Human ships cut off their escape routes, forcing them to fight their way out. In the midst of battle, Admiral Nelson's flagship pushed forward, targeting the Imperial ships attempting to flee. The Defiant took heavy fire as it engaged 3 enemy cruisers simultaneously. Admiral, we have multiple hull breaches, Major Barnes reported. Engineering reports critical damage to our main power systems. Nelson nodded grimly. Continue the attack. We need to press our advantage. A massive explosion rocked the Defiant as an Imperial beam cut through its weakened shields. Fire erupted on the bridge and emergency systems activated. Admiral, Barnes called out as smoke filled the air. Nelson could see the Imperial flagship was crippled but still operational. If it escaped, the Empire would return with an even larger force. He made his final decision. Set collision course with the Imperial flagship, he ordered calmly. All non-essential personnel to escape pods. Barnes stared at him in shock. Sir, you can't. That's an order, Major, Nelson said firmly. Someone needs to stay and make sure this ship hits its target. As the crew evacuated, Nelson took manual control of the Defiant. The damaged ship accelerated toward the massive Imperial flagship, weapons firing continuously to clear a path. Vice Admiral Paul Garcia, watching from his command ship, realized what Nelson was doing. All ships provide cover for the Defiant. The Admiral is going to ram the Imperial flagship. The Defiant crashed into the Imperial flagship in a blinding flash of light. The explosion tore through the massive vessel, breaking it into pieces. Admiral Nelson's sacrifice disabled the planet killer weapon and sent shockwaves through the Imperial command structure. In the chaos that followed, Vice Admiral Paul Garcia took command of Earth's forces. All ships pressed the attack. Don't let them regroup. The human fleet closed in on the damaged Imperial ships, which were now fighting without central coordination. The battle turned into a rout as the Empire's forces scattered, trying to escape the unexpected defeat. 2 days later, Earth's leaders gathered in the underground command center. The screen showed the remaining Imperial ships in full retreat. Vice Admiral Garcia, now promoted to Admiral, delivered his report. The Empire has withdrawn completely from our solar system. We destroyed 34 of their capital ships and damaged at least 20 more. Admiral Nelson's sacrifice crippled their command structure. Samantha Perry, who had been monitoring communications, stepped forward. We're picking up unusual transmissions from the retreating Imperial ships. They're requesting to open a dialogue." The room fell silent. "What kind of dialogue?" asked William Carter, the head of Earth's Leadership Council. "They're asking for terms," Samantha replied, surprise evident in her voice. "It seems they want to know what it would take for us to cease hostilities." Carter looked around the room. "They invaded our system, threatened our colonies, and now they want terms. What do we do with this?" Admiral Garcia studied the tactical display showing Earth's fleet positions. "We should hear them out. Our forces are strong, but we've taken losses too. And there's still the rest of their empire out there." The council agreed to a meeting in neutral space. 3 days later, Samantha Perry led a diplomatic team aboard Earth's newest flagship, the Nelson. They met with Imperial representatives in orbit around Pluto. Commander Valker, who had survived the destruction of his ship, led the Imperial delegation. His once proud posture was now stiff with tension. The side of his face was burned from the battle, and 2 of his 6 eyes were covered with healing patches. "The Empire wishes to understand the terms under which Earth would agree to a cessation of hostilities," he said formally. Samantha looked him directly in his remaining eyes. "First, recognize Earth and all human colonies as sovereign and independent. Second, provide reparations for the damage caused. Third, release any human prisoners, including Dr. Ella Wright." Valker's expression remained carefully neutral. "These terms are unusual. The Empire does not typically negotiate as equals with non-member species." "We are not typical," Samantha replied. Admiral Garcia, who had insisted on attending, activated a holographic display. It showed the full extent of Earth's military capabilities. Dozens more fleets stationed throughout the solar system. Hundreds of ships that had not even joined the battle. "What you encountered was only a fraction of our defense force," Garcia said. Valker stared at the display, his remaining eyes widening. "This cannot be. A single planetary system cannot maintain such a fleet." "Believe what you want," Garcia said coldly. "But know this, if you return with another invasion force, it will be your empire that begs for mercy, not just your battle group." The Imperial commander was silent for a long moment. "I will convey your terms to the Imperial Council, but I must know, how did humans advance so quickly? Our records show your species barely managed spaceflight less than 2 centuries ago." Samantha smiled. "We had good teachers, and were fast learners." 1 week later, the Empire formally requested peace talks. Their representatives arrived not with demands, but with offers of trade and mutual recognition. The Imperial Council had seen the reports, viewed the battle recordings, and made their decision. Earth was not worth the cost of conquering. In the conference room on Mars, Carter signed the peace treaty with Imperial representatives. Samantha stood nearby, watching as humanity officially joined the galactic community, not as subjects, but as equals. Dr. Ella Wright, returned as part of the agreement, joined Captain Alan Beck on the observation deck. Below them, Earth shone blue and beautiful. "What happens now?" Ella asked. Alan smiled. "Now we show them who humans really are. Not just warriors who can fight, but explorers who want to discover." As the Imperial ships departed, they passed the newly commissioned exploration vessel Discovery, commanded by Captain Beck. Its mission was simple: to go beyond known space, not to conquer, but to connect. The Empire had come expecting to find sheep. Instead, they found wolves. But more importantly, they found humans. Adaptable, innovative, and unlike any species they had encountered before.